helper, Mr. I let you.
Hey, get in here. Dallas is about to start.
Welcome to the Ewing Barbecue. If you've just found us, we are a Dallas rewatch podcast. We rewatch and review every single episode of Dallas one at a time. And we rate it on a scale from 1 to 5 bourbons. We are about to start season 7, which I am really excited about, as that's one of my favorite seasons, as it has ham and porn stash. Oh my gosh. Jenna, mother effing Wade. We discuss the storylines with current day context. We comment on everybody's clothes and hair. But most importantly, we have fun with our favorite TV show, including playing a drinking game to it. And if you'd like to find the full rules, those are on our website, ewingbbq.com. And sometimes we have very special episodes that we call our DOA meetings with people from the cast, like today, where we have Queen Linda Gray, otherwise known as Sue Ellen, or as Clayton would say, Swellen. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Patrick Duffy, otherwise known as the always angry Bobby Ewing.
Well, JR always made him angry.
Always. He's always mad. He's always going to beat somebody up. And we also have our brand new podcast, Southfork consultant, Janet Tim, with us. And we're going to talk about the exciting Southfork Experience that's coming up in October. So welcome to the barbecue. Let us buy you a drink. My name is Mary.
I am Josh.
I'm Melanie.
And Brad. And I'm Patrick. Patrick, nice to meet you.
And I'm Linda. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.
So as we all know, we have the Southfork Experience coming up. And I know we just came off of that huge event in Burbank. Yes, Burbank. Bourbon in Burbank. Bourbon in Burbank.
Yes.
With 25 members of the cast at least. And then we also had a couple people in the other room that weren't part of that huge group photo. Melody Anderson, who played Linda Farlow on one episode with you, Linda. Her character obviously was named after you. She played Dusty's wife.
We dig deep on this.
Right. And, she's now a social worker, so she might, as a therapist, tell us what is wrong with each of the characters on the show.
Oh, that's a lot. It's a lot.
That could be a whole series in itself. But,
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
what was it?
None of us have anything wrong.
Uh-huh.
That's a JR compliment. What was it like for both of you to just be back together in that atmosphere with everybody in Burbank? I know some of them you hadn't seen in a while, like Jack Scalia and Omri and Josh Harris and all those people.
You go, girl.
It was so much fun, but my feeling is that we didn't have enough time together. There were so many fans, God bless them, and they just kept coming and we were signing people pictures. We didn't have a lot of time to sort of reminisce with everybody. I sat next to Patrick, so I got to kind of sort of catch up a little bit. And he was with his granddaughter, Fiona, and I fell in love with the granddaughter. And,
she was really sweet. It was nice to meet her.
Great. And, it was like this gigantic, fabulous reunion that we didn't get to see everybody. That's what I thought anyway. That was my feeling. Loved it.
It was wonderful, too. We had a nice, intimate moment and photograph with both of our sons grown up, with Omri Katz and Christopher all grown up. And it was a time warp feeling of being able to see those young men now as young men, and having gone through what we went through when they were basically toddlers, and moving up. So, the time passing element of that show that continues to happen because we continue to do events like this is a wonderful reminiscence every single time it happens. There's a tinge every once in a while when somebody does not show for, various reasons. And the ultimate reason, of course, like not having Larry there and not having Clayton and, the original family members.
Jenny, Kitty Gerson.
Many. So, and that will continue to happen. But the interesting thing is it doesn't diminish the joy because we remember all of those people as if they were standing beside us at the time. And that's really rare, I think, in a television show to maintain that kind of genetic closeness that we feel whenever we're together. So the barbecue is just going to be another reiteration of that for sure.
I had a few of my lovers show up, which was fabulous. Rarely does that show up. You really get to see
That was
it.
18. That was 18 of the 20 people that were there.
You didn't really mourn Jack Scalia much after he plunged off that balcony. It's just like you.
No, because I see him. I see him on radio.
They cut the
So
sound.
much fun. I'm like, you see, that was the Chris Atkins, Jack Scalia, anybody else there? Anybody? Yeah.
And they're both coming to Southfork in October as well.
Yes,
So,
Super fun.
but we got to keep everyone away from the pool. You did mention those that aren't here, and it reminded me of a question I was going to ask you at the 40th thing, but they were rushing us through our interviews. But talk about, you lost Jim during the original series and Larry during the continuation. Talk about the emotions that were involved. And I always bookend the search episode for Jim in South America and Jrs Masterpiece, and just talk about what it was like on the set and just how their legacy carried on from there.
Again, Linda, you go.
No, you were with them on that great South American adventure.
Yeah.
You pulled up the
wasn't
medallion.
there. I was not there, thank God.
Well, and thank goodness that episode was filmed long enough after the passing of Jim that, you make adjustments. You go through whatever those steps of grieving are. And as a friend and a coworker, I know they're different than real family, but Jim was as close to real family as we got as a cast. But by the time we were filming that episode, we filmed it in a small lake in California. And the depth of that water was only about 5 feet. Because beyond that, from 5 feet to about 15 feet was nothing but duck shit.
Hey.
That was a small pond lake that was used as just a scenic lake, and birds have been flocking on that lake for 50 years and more, and so it just kept filling up, and I had to be in the water, and they gave me the real medallion that Jim's wife loaned us just for that shot, so I was hanging on to it with my life because I was given it in the boat, and then they rolled the camera, and then I would let go of the boat, go underwater, wait long enough, and then come up saying, I found something, and then show that to the camera. But the hard part was that in order to get underwater, I had to go at least 2 feet into duck shit.
Oh,
So it was not as heroic and romantic as it might have appeared.
oh my God! Thank God I wasn't there.
Oh,
Recipe for swimmer's
You had
itch.
to be brave to do that.
Well, and I'd done Man from Atlanta, so I'd swum in a lot of
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
That's right.
very, very suspect water over my
Yes.
But there was a full back team shower after that.
Hepatitis shot, the whole.
But it's just interesting to bookend that episode and then with Larry and Jr's Masterpiece and the new one.
Oh, that was let out a long time before camera.
Yeah.
There were so many emotions that led up to it. We knew he was not doing well at all. And so every moment we knew, and I think it was the loveliest thing for me in retrospect to say he left the planet doing what he loved to do. And that's That's how I remember it. It's like, Larry, you weren't home sitting, watching television or something. You were actually on the set doing the J.R. Ewing that the world will never see again, and doing the hell of a job. And he was amazing. And to know that that's the way he passed, can't wish for anything better. So it was a tough one. Damn, just talking about it is a tough one, But Patrick and I were with him. We were with him a couple of days before he passed, and then we were with him when he passed.
We were with him when he passed, yeah. And that had no real time to sink in and to get fixed. We did that episode during the shooting of the final few episodes of that season. And so it was immediate in your mind. We had been at the hospital, just a brief amount of time before that. So everything was raw and emotional. And then every single person there, the original cast, they all questioned the ability to get through their job on the scene at the graveside, because everybody reacts to grief differently. But we all reacted to Larry the same way, and missing him was monumental in all of our lives. And it was all for friendship. Not one of us missed him because, what's it going to do to the show? To be quite honest, at that point, we didn't give a shit. It was just that we were saying goodbye to Larry. Peggy was not be there the next day. So if the show was canceled that afternoon, so be it. A fine send-off for this.
I think that came through on the screen. The performances were very real, and we all felt that.
Her performances
on that, yeah. And fandom can be rough, and they'll say that Dallas just isn't the same, and it isn't without Larry Hagman. But I can argue that this is at the root of it. It's a family drama, and it's generational, and this is something that 200 years from now there might be a TV show about the Ewings of Dallas in the 23rd century.
Right. And we have to take a lesson from daytime soap operas. Who go through cast members that have been on the shows for 10, 15 years, and their demise is story worthy, and the cast and the stories get through it, and they move on. But the memories are always the payoff.
Some of those shows run 50 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And I think it's Larry would have found humor in the fact that he passed at 4:20 in the afternoon, which is
what?
Yes.
It's absolutely perfect for him. And I thought that when I went in for the final time, when Linda and I went in his room, and he was in his coma and he was on his life support, and I was just hoping he could hear me, because by the bed I turned to his son Preston, who was there, and I said, "Do you think he's really unconscious, or is he just pretending for the drugs?" Really hoped he heard
Fallon. Oh, he totally did.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry.
Now, Jana, you worked at Southfork, and for a long time.
A long time.
There was a story in the paper that Larry's ashes are at Southfork. Is this?
I did not know that happened when it happened, but I've heard that it's true. Because they couldn't tell me, because I was the general manager, and you're not supposed to do that. But right. If they had told me, I would not.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But yeah, I did hear that's true. I mean, I heard that from more than one place that it is true. I just remember when he did pass away, the very next, I'll never forget. I'll cry talking about it. But the very next day I came to work, and the whole gate in front of the mansion was covered with roses and flowers and Christmas trees and letters. I mean, it took everything away. I mean, I couldn't talk. I was like, wow. It was stunning. I have pictures somewhere. But people overnight that were local, I would assume, because it couldn't come from very far, did that. And it was that very night. Because it was right on Thanksgiving weekend, remember? Or somewhere around Thanksgiving.
Well,
yes.
Thanksgiving.
I would love to see those pictures.
So Larry is certainly going to be present at this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us about the event.
Friday night, we have a cocktail hour coming up, and
he'll be there for that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But Saturday is kind of like Saturday and Sunday. There are parts of it that are like the things you did in Burbank with the photos and the autographs and the meet and greet. And then there's the auction, the barbecue, and your TV son, Josh Henderson, is doing a concert that night. It's going to be a tight weekend. What are you most looking forward to?
For me, it's always the reunion, seeing everybody. Maybe I'll get to see them more than I did in Burbank. Who knows?
I hope so.
Yeah, you won't, Linda. It's going to be pandemonium.
I need to set aside time for you guys just to hang out.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But yes, that's a nice idea. But the reason that we're doing this show and they're able to do this show is because of the people that watch the show. So the time to have our reunion is great, but with that amount of people there, they really deserve all of our attention for those 3 days. Linda and I see each other. We text and talk to each other. Steve Canale and I, communicate. So, we have the opportunity to have intimate moments with each other, either by, Zooming or texting or calling on the phone or anything like that. But when something like this comes along, it really is, to honor the people that allow us to have the life that we have right now. So I can only speak for myself. I don't need to have a couple of hours of quiet time in a room with cast members. I'll find as many as I can during the course of the 3 days, but it really is about the people who are coming there to see the people in the show that they've loved for all those years. So they deserve our attention. And that's really where my focus will be for sure. And
they're coming in from Europe. In Burbank, they flew in from Scotland and London. It was shocking to see that many people came in. Those are the devoted fans.
Yeah.
And you honor that.
Yeah.
During the panel, I was sitting next to a girl that's from Belgium. When you guys did the panel with William Keck. I mean, it's just incredible. The love all around the world still going on. I was trying to catch up a little bit on the details of all this today or earlier this morning, and I was listening to Josh's interview with Kathy Bodwell, and she used the phrase "filled up with joy" after the Burbank show, and I wanted to get your thoughts on how we, because fans can be a lot, right? We can be a lot, and we're aware of that. We demand, a lot of times. Some people don't, but we are aware that we're demanding and we want attention and blah blah blah. But just how the being in that group really just fills you up with joy, and when you walk away from it, how different you feel from when you arrived.
Well, I have to say something for Linda because she doesn't always say this, but she on an absolute daily basis does a gratitude walk, and where she first thing in the morning she just goes through the things that she is grateful for, and that's the feeling that I get taking lead from her on moments like that is just abject gratitude for people that come out, and gratitude for the cast members because we were an amazing cast of people. There wasn't a stinker in the group. There wasn't a day where you went, oh my God, I have a day of scenes with, Attila the Hun, Cruella de Vil, or that the amount of gratitude I have that I never had a bad day at work in 13 years originally, and in the 3 years of the reboot, it was unbelievably special. So, that's the filling up that maybe Kathy was talking about, that there's just no negativity to be considered in that time frame. And it's remarkable.
I remember the first time that Larry, Patrick, and myself received the phone call from CBS 20 years later saying, we're going to do it again. And the three of us, I think we were in our cars or something in LA, the three of us said how excited we were to be able to work together again. It was just so joyful. I just remember driving in LA, huge smile on my face going, oh my God, I get to play with my buddies, my friends, and I get to work with them. And that was filled up. I was so filled up that day, I couldn't stand it.
Right. Yeah. The biggest drawback of the show being canceled was that essentially, Linda was right. Larry and Linda and I were like the Three Musketeers. The horrible thing about being canceled, we knew we would never work together again because no producer would put the three of us or the two of us in any combination in a show without the entire audience going, "Oh, look, it's Sue Ellen and JR. Oh, it's Bobby and Sue Ellen." So we would never work together again until it was TNT, of course, that said, "We're doing the show." And we just thought, well, then we've died and gone to dog heaven.
And there were some subtle references on Step by Step. There were a few in jokes here and there at different points, and it was fun that you got to work with Sasha Mitchell again too on there. I know you got together with the Step by Step cast as well, and we had you at 90s Con.
Now, that was my jam before Dallas as the young one in this group.
Maybe we'll do a step-by-step reunion somewhere like that.
Yeah.
It won't be the same. I must tell you, we could do a step-by-step reunion. It doesn't have the same emotional punch that a Dallas reunion does. Dallas just occupied such a large part emotionally, professionally, personally, in all of our lives that, it literally was at one point almost half my life, So that's a huge chunk. And
I feel like that's what comes through the screen too, because so our podcast is kind of based on the fact that we all watched, except for Melanie, who wasn't born yet. All watched Dallas when we were far too young to be watching it, and so now as an adult, I'm rewatching it, and we're trying to figure out like what made me obsessed with the show when I was 8 years old. I'm starting to think it's just that feeling comes through the screen. That feeling of family and character and stuff just comes through.
It was appointment television, was what it was. And you had 3 channels and nothing. And you couldn't record things because VCRs were in their infancy. So you had to be there.
Just excited that I could stay up till 10 o'clock at night on Fridays to watch it.
Right.
I was old enough to get set to bed in the last couple of years of the show when it came on because, I watched my TGIF, but then, it was time for Dallas and I spent Friday nights with my grandparents and it was like, time to change the channel. One.
Scraps.
Yep. But I'm so grateful because watching the show years later, friendships formed, obviously. These folks here.
Yeah. But, Dallas, it's interesting. One reason I think why it resonated with families and with young people, especially now that didn't see it originally, is the family dynamic is universal and timeless, and the fact that Bobby and JR, just to cite an example, could be at loggerheads, absolute opposite ends of a fight. And yet, that night there's drinks in the living room, dinner in the dining room. And if anybody said anything bad about your brother, then you have to fight both of them.
Right. Dysfunction and chaos. Yes.
Yes. But a family likes to hear that, because every family has a problem with a family member.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Encourage knowing that. But if the cards really get thrown on the table, my family is going to back me up.
That's right.
And that's a wonderful, if ever we had a message to deliver other than greed, avarice, sex, and all those other things, it's that families do stick together eventually, and it's important to maintain the family relationships. And so I think that's why a lot of young people discover that show and it still holds power over them.
And I think of, I have come up with another interesting arcing message of what Dallas was about, and it's a little different. JR was one of the main focuses, but it could also be about the life journey of Bobby and Sue Ellen, going from Sue Ellen being the alcoholic and the insecure wife at the beginning to this powerful businesswoman co-owning Ewing Oil by the end. And just her arc of
character growth.
your character arc, and Patrick, Bobby's character arc of coming off the road and to the point where all these years later, he is the patriarch of the family and co-owning the ranch and everything. And you have
Miss Gray.
Well, Josh, you summed it up perfectly. I was never supposed to be important in the show in the beginning. Never. Even in the very first episode, there's never a mention of Sue Ellen, not her name, nothing. In the script, it's written Sue Ellen, but nobody ever said anything. Well, you didn't know who she was. Was she the wife? Was she the tennis pro? Was she the masseuse? Who the hell was she? You didn't know. And if you go way back to the beginning, and I was basically an extra. And they had, honestly, and my salary was minuscule. And they had no intention. They wanted JR to be the bad boy that he was anyway. And so they didn't want whites to be attached. So that's how my character began. And then I was beyond thrilled, beyond grateful to have this evolve. This wonderful, delicious, dysfunctional, alcoholic character become a household name and word. And people would, in England especially, they would have, and whenever Sue Ellen would take a drink, they would, I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they're still on the floor. I have no idea. It's like, I was stunned. And I just had no idea that she would ever, ever, ever evolve like this. But
she became someone that we could look up to. I mean, young girls,
Of course.
She became this powerful businesswoman, and that was a really good example in the 80s, I think.
Because you learned everything by listening and by watching. By watching JR, by listening to JR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of women have to do.
Before that, before the character even evolved, I had nothing to do. We were in Southfork in Dallas, and I walked across the street to Neiman Marcus. And this is because I didn't have any law, had nothing to do. And I went to the beauty salon there, and I listened, and I heard the women of Dallas talking. What they were talking about, what they were wearing, how they did their makeup, all of the women things that every woman on the planet wants to know. And I was thrilled to incorporate that. This is the woman I'm playing. This is married to a very wealthy man in Texas. So that's how I started gathering Sue Ellen. She was a gatherer, basket. But that made it even more exciting because I knew about the relationships with their rich husbands. I knew that, and it just kept feeding me as an actor. It's like, okay, bring this on, I got this. This is great. It was wonderful. So then I had the tools to begin. And then to look at that guy, Larry Hagman and J.R. Ewing, and I thought, who the hell would marry you? I remember a scene, just looking at it going, oh my God, there must be something wrong with Sue Ellen Ewing to marry J.R. Ewing. And
he had some issues.
I'm so glad I did this. I went into the ladies' salon at Neiman Marcus. Watched them and saw how they put on their makeup, and it signaled a lot of things that I used as Bobby Ewing for a long time.
Hair, especially.
Came through. Yeah.
So by 2014, Sue Ellen ends the run, now owning half of Ewing Oil.
It's great. And Linda and Larry and I talked about this. It was so great to come back on the show after 20 years and not try and play the characters as they were 20 years prior. I wasn't, going to be swaggering, fighting Bobby Ewing. Linda was mature businesswoman. Larry was, in his dotage, quite honestly. He was in a rest home at the time, So, the first scene I had in the show, when the show aired, was Bobby's 60th birthday, his celebration. which was a lie because I think then I was 64. It's rare that you get the chance to age a character the way that we were able to do that with all of our different characters, to say, who are they now? They're not who they were 20 years ago. And then you make up whatever that gray area that nobody knows what happened, and it makes your job fun, and not a job anymore, to be able to play with characters, and the script writers were aware of it, the producers were aware of it, and we as actors, I think, had more fun doing the reboot than we did at the end of doing the regular show, because it was all new. We were new characters.
Yeah.
I think those character progressions is that's what gets people going back to those shows.
Yes.
I find myself, if I pick up an old show that I haven't seen before or haven't seen in a long time, that if I try to watch it all the way through, I don't care so much about the individual stories, the episodes themselves. It's more about the characters and where do they go from season 1 to season 5 or season 7 or whatever. And I think that's what that's really what brings us back to Dallas, because we want to go back to the beginning and see how different they were in the beginning and watch that progression happen again. And Linda talks about how she didn't have much of a character in the beginning, and they added to that. How much of that was the writers, and how much of that was them writing to your strengths? Was that in the back of their minds to begin with?
Well, the writers were. I actually, in the very beginning, back in the motel days, I told them that was giving. I remember it was David Jacobs, God bless him. David Jacobs and I would sit in the coffee shop at that little motel we stayed at, and I would tell him what I was doing. I'd say, "Look, I have no lines. I have nothing to do, and here's what I'm finding out." And he had not. I think he'd been to Dallas, but he didn't know. He said, "All I know is that everybody has 2 names." And I thought, okay, let's take that for a beginning, for a start. Anyway, so I remember sitting with David Jacobs in the coffee shop saying, "Look, I heard about this, and it's a great story, and blah, blah, blah." And I told him this story. I said, I was in the ladies' room at Neiman Marcus or something. And the lady was putting on lipstick, and I was standing next to her, and she had a tiniest little purse, this big. And it was Judith Lieber, very fancy, very expensive. And she opened it to get her lipstick out. And I looked inside, and there was a gun.
Excellent.
There was a gun.
Jenna, you live down there. Do you carry a gun?
Only when I absolutely have to. And so I remember looking in the bag, and I thought, do I see anything? Do I not? So I looked at her, and I said, this is really smart on you. I said, "Excuse me, is that a gun?" And she just looked at me, and she said, "Of course, Jonathan, this is Texas." And that was the end of the conversation. So I told David Jacobs, I said, "This is such a great scene. You've got to put it in." It never happened, but for me, I will always remember that. That was 1978. Yep.
Speaking of guns, you Shepherd sisters had really poor aim. You mentioned that Southfork is a character itself, and that your sons would say at the end of the opening credits, "and Southfork."
The opening credits would always start with Barbara Bilgettis. It was all alphabetical, so Barbara Bilgettis. And after the first few episodes, they could recite it along with, the pictures that came up on the thing. But it always ended with a shot of the ranch. So that, for my boys, just became part of the character of the show. And they would always go at the very end. I forget who was the final character, but they would say, "and the ranch." And
That's great. That.
It really was a character, because so much centered around the ranch. Who owned it? Who ran it? There was oil on it. Could you drill on it? It was Miss Ellie's ranch, and it was because of her father, and never drill on it. And it played as big a part as Jock Ewing and Miss Ellie and JR in terms of developing storylines for Dallas, for sure.
Totally.
And the
And
characters had to act differently when they were in Southfork as opposed to at work or whatever, too.
Well, when you're at home, then everybody kowtowed to mama and daddy.
Mhm. And you went through two different ranches. You had the miniseries ranch and the one we know now, which Jana is representing here.
Present
That's-
ranch was by far the better ranch. The problem with the first ranch was we all lived in separate little houses on the ranch. We weren't in the same building. There were little cabana apartment type things. And so we didn't have that down the hall relationship. You didn't have, I'm going upstairs in a huff, or, you would just go out and slam the door and you could be totally by yourself. So the ranch played an important part by keeping us all together.
And I always found the main house of the first ranch to be very cold, very dark.
But we were so rich, why didn't we all have our own houses?
That's what I always say.
Fair question.
I've heard that so many times over the years. And I always say you would never show if they all lived in different houses.
Right.
And JR and Jock always referred to Gary as the weak one, but he was the one that actually got up and moved away and lived his own life away from everybody else.
Murder, Ewing in the back.
So bringing it back, we're all heading back down there, and
I've
obviously-
never been.
Melanie has never been. So this is going to be
It's my maiden voyage. That'll be great.
last week or so. There's been some talk about part of the property they're going to be building housing on
Yeah.
there, and I know, Jana, you live down there and you're in the area. What have you heard? And Patrick and Linda,
And
what are
I'm
your
still friends with a whole lot of people from the city of Parker as well, like leadership people. What I do know is they passed it with planning and zoning to allow it to be rezoned residential. It is not the area where the mansion is, where the event center is, where the gift shop is. It's not that area. It's out on the field and across the street. So they passed it to be zoned residential for 2-acre lots based on a lot of different conditions. But from there, it has to pass a whole lot of other things. So it's just the first step of, really, it's the first step. So it's got a long ways to go.
Well, it went a long ways from the very beginning when we first started filming.
Yes.
You could
Because Rex bought the rest of that land.
You could almost shoot a scene in any direction, and it would look like the ranch stood alone. And
Right.
then over the years, there would be a building coming there and another building there and this coming there. And then depending on who owned the ranch at the time, then would come the clearing center or the gift shop. And you had to adjust your camera to exclude those things. The only thing we ever adjusted the camera to in the first few years was the crowd of people that would come through the gate, and watch the filming. But they were very polite. They would stand behind the rope and be quiet when we shot and everything, and move when we had to use wherever they were standing. But by the end of the reboot, there were very few places you could aim a camera and not see, what the hell is that? So
I know. I had to run all over the neighborhood telling people to stop mowing and all sorts of the sounds. But the tourism still was on while y'all were doing the reboot. So we did not stop tourism. However, I will tell you that people still remember, especially Patrick, jumping the fence to say hello, or Linda coming out of a room. They always came out and surprised the tourists just to say hello. And those tourists loved that so much. You guys were so great with them.
We're not filming there anymore, so it didn't.
Nope.
right?
Doesn't matter. But the city has not gotten a whole lot bigger. It's just the surrounding area has.
Right.
It stayed pretty small.
But the message to fans out there is the mansion part, that whole part is supposed to be safe, supposedly, right?
Yes, that's what they're saying.
Okay, that's what they're saying.
That's the important part.
Yeah,
That's the
I will
important
tell you
part.
what I hear.
And we will be so excited to go there in October.
Right, and we're bringing it all back full circle here, and we're going to be
If you've
down
never been
there.
like Melanie. It's beautiful, and it's going to be even better in October. I don't know if you guys ever filmed in October. I know you filmed a lot in the summer, but I'm sure you'll enjoy being there in October more so than in those dog days of the summer that you used to film in.
Didn't you pick? We'd rather film in the fall because the summers were just brutally hot when you came back on.
I remember hearing that story.
We didn't have that choice.
We did have a choice, but we let them know in what they'd be up against. And not
Yeah.
they wouldn't be up against unhappy actors. They'd be up against the elements, So
Right.
I can imagine.
they did get a slight movement in terms of the location time shooting, but we filmed the entire thing down there during the reboot, and not just location.
Right. And they
Yeah.
utilized the event center and the house. They filmed in a lot of places they had never filmed before.
And I was an extra on that barbecue episode, but all you could see was my elbow. But that's another story. And I remember, Linda, I was off with the extras, and I think you spotted me and you started waving, and I just turned to our production assistant. I think it was Ingrid who was there. And I said, "Oh, I know Linda, and I'm going to go over." And I sat with you and Larry for a little while at that little round table, and we chatted, and that was great. It was a great time.
I didn't wave at you because I didn't want you to come over.
I'll remember that. It's okay, but you had to put up with me at your table in Burbank. So
Sorry, Patrick.
yeah,
I apologize for him.
but so one of the unique, as we just begin to wind down, one of the unique things that they have coming up that weekend is for some of the higher ticketed things. I've already done, as Jana knows, a website tutorial for southforkexperience.com, so everyone can just kind of understand the website and all the packages. But there's going to be a brunch on Sunday morning. Hopefully nobody ends up in the pool. Because Jenna Lee Harrison is going to be there, and she has been known to shove people in the pool. Cast members are going to be actually giving tours to some of the VIP people. It's going to be an interesting experience.
It's interesting because it was a surprise to me.
I didn't know who were
My tour is basically going to be, there's the door, go in and come out when you see it.
I think you'll have a helper with you that does it every day.
Okay, yes. So just a quick rundown. Patrick, Linda, Charlene, Steve, your poor, ill-fated wife, Cherie, is going to be there.
The bullet wounds have healed.
Apparently. It's ironic that she passed in Paris, like they saw April in Paris. But Jack Scalia, Christopher Atkins. We won't even go into that whole storyline at this point. But we're about to move into that season, so maybe you'll come back and talk about that later. But Josh Henderson, Joan Van Ark is going to come in too.
You said
Kathy Polwell, we mentioned her. Sweet little Kathy. You had an interesting dynamic with her on the show, Linda, when she came on and tricking JR into the marriage and popping the balloon at the...
and I just punched her out in that time. Right, or Larry, I don't know. I just remember he introduced me to her.
Any messages to the fans? Any last questions anyone wants to toss out there?
Disappointed when you see how we've aged.
Hey, so have all the fans.
We've all aged too.
Yeah, I'm not
So-
8 years old anymore. So,
Yeah, right.
I'm 9. No. Oh, wait,
Just mentally.
yes.
And
And
you're still here and you're still doing it. So that's all that matters. Right?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
great group of people that'll be there, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of value in some of the packages, for the event. So I hope everybody's taking a hard look at what they can do. If you want to go, get there somehow, and even if you can't be there for everything, if you can at least go one day, I think you'll have a great time.
I'm most
People
excited
are
for the
so
barbecue.
gracious. Yeah.
yes. And there's, I have to bring up, for Cherie, I have to bring up the auction for the Yellow Rose Gala Foundation to benefit multiple sclerosis research. There'll be paintings. And have you seen the paintings that have been done of you yet?
Yes.
Yes. I'm blown away by the quality. They just look so lifelike.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Forward-
Thank you so
Great
much.
to see everybody.
Thank you for your patience and your graciousness. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
It's really good to see your faces.
Thank you for joining us, and join us. We will start season 7. Until then, bye.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Happy trails.
Take care, everybody.
I'm going to be Sarah right now and say bye, y'all.
Yeah, bye.
The Ewing Barbecue Podcast is a Stitches creative production. Produced, edited, and graphic design by Mary Louise Hutter. That's me. Social media by Josh Eilberg and Brad Mulholland. Our Southfork expert and behind-the-scenes helper is Jana Tim. Please check out our website, ewingbbq.com, for all things Dallas and Ewing barbecue related. Copyright 2024. Sit, Bela Lugosi, sit. Good dog.